Jed Hoyer is the president of baseball operations for the Chicago Cubs, and he's been on a billion times with us, and he always said he'd like to get his dog, get in the car, take 3 days to drive to Arizona. But I guess when you're the president, do you just get a limousine that takes you out there now?
No, you can't do anything differently. I drove out. It was great. That's my 3 days with my dog. It's quiet with no kids around, and I get a chance to kind of decompress, so I'm not giving that up.
Jed, read the story this morning about Deion Sanders. I don't know if you saw this. He was able to win his first game as a head coach for Jackson State. He was so happy about the victory, but he was also really down because someone stole his stuff, his jewelry, everything else, all his personal items, his phone. Has someone ever stolen anything from you personally?
No, but I know the thing about a clubhouse is that obviously guys, they have to feel like that's their home. They have to feel totally comfortable. And even when you're the visiting team, you have to feel the same way. And so, I feel like when I've been a part of a team or something got stolen out of someone's locker, it was a serious offense, and everyone kind of gathered together to try to figure out what happened, because you can't have any lack of trust in there, and people have to feel totally comfortable. So, when I saw that, I felt for him, because that is such a loss of trust for a head coach to feel that way.
All right, the flip side, what have you stole? What have you stolen beside a draft pick or a trade? Let's hear that story. Roll that out for us.
Oh man, my parents are. I was talking to my parents about this. I haven't stolen anything for a long time, but I definitely, as a young kid, had those moments where I might have grabbed something and got taken back to the store and had to return it and apologize and lectured. And so I feel like I got those lessons seared into my brain at a young age, and I think that was probably good for me.
Okay, so I thought about this a lot when I knew we were going to talk to you. Which is a tougher job? 2012, you and Theo roll in, and the infrastructure's awful. There's not a lot in the system. Oh, God. I remember sitting with you guys, and you're like, this is going to take some time here when you're running Jason Birkin and all these other guys out to the mound. Or 5 out of 6 years to the playoffs, so there's a level of expectation, and all these guys other than Wilson has 2 years. The rest out of contract after this year. Which job's tougher?
Well, I think every period, has its challenges. I think that, the best and worst thing right now, is expectations. And I love the fact that over the last 9 years, we've changed the expectations of Cubs fans and the Cubs media. And, we're just another organization now that's expected to win year in, year out. And that's awesome. I think that the days of having a good season, every decade or so are gone. And, I think that's the biggest difference, is that, the expectations are different, but that's a great thing. And, when we come to spring training, when we start camp, people are expecting a playoff season and expecting us to win a division. And I think that's a great thing. But yeah, there's challenges. I mean, I think that with, when we started this rebuild and we started gathering these players, obviously whenever you have that, you've got a window of time when you control those players before they hit free agency, and we're getting towards the end of that window. So there's some challenges associated with that, but these are good problems. The players that we've had for a long time are great players, all-star players and MVPs, and so we have to navigate through that the end of their control with us, but. Like I said, I think those are good challenges. Rebuilding from the bottom up, that's a pretty daunting task when you're faced with it.
Jed, Cap and I during the hot stove have been trying to talk about where the Cubs are versus other teams in the National League Central. How competitive do you think the Central will be, and where do you place the Cubs amongst the other teams in the division?
Well, I think it's going to be a really competitive division. Obviously, I think I saw it the other day that I think that the whole NL Central spent less than like $70 million on free agency, and I mean, Arenado doesn't count towards that, but in general, it was the least active of all the divisions. But still, I think you've got 4 competitive teams that are going to be fighting to win the division. So I expect it to be competitive, but certainly what we don't have is the sort of level of spending and expectation that have happened in for example the NL West with the Dodgers and Padres, or the NL East with the Mets, obviously, really increasing their profile and their payroll this winter. So that's probably the biggest difference, but I still expect it to be very competitive. And like I said, there's going to be 4 teams fighting hard to win the division this year.
As you look at your system, and you've got, I think, 5 in the top 100, and, last time we had you on, you said, look, they're in the lower levels, but we got some guys we're really, really excited about. With the inability to get, whether it was Bryant or Baez or Contreras or at the time Schwarber or Russell, all those guys said, no, we're going to go year to year. Would you be more open in your administration to signing guys maybe before they had significant success at the major league level, going, you know what, I believe in that guy and I'm going to roll the dice? Because some teams have done that.
They have. I think one thing I would say is that our guys had success right away.
Yep.
That was actually one of the challenges that we ran into. And it's a valid question. I think that there's been some teams that have had some success getting guys, signed to extensions even before they played a major league game. And obviously we weren't able to do that. But I would also say that our guys right away, in 2015, we won 97 games when those guys first came up, and then we won the World Series in 16. And so it immediately became much more difficult to sign these guys to extensions. All of a sudden they're heroes in the city and nationally. And I do think the fact that their profile got raised so quickly, I think obviously that changed that dynamic. I think in some other markets, it's been a little bit easier to get guys signed. But that's no excuse. We've had really good dialogue with a lot of these guys, and productive dialogue. We with the exception of Rizzo and Hendricks, and Bodie, we haven't been able to get those deals done. And obviously that's the fact we have to live with now, and we have to factor that into our decision making.
Jed, in your conversations with David Ross and the staff, is there something that we can look forward to here in 2021 as far as the Cubs offense? I've told Cap many times, I've never seen a good team that just cannot come through on a consistent basis like the Cubs. You see this roster and you see the lineup every day in the past. You say this team should be able to manufacture more runs, to be able to have more production. How does that turn around in 21 offensively?
Well, I think that, it's very true. And I think that we've talked about that a lot, that the offense has definitely been less than the sum of its parts over the last couple of years. And when you look at the players, in the lineup spots, you think to yourself that, there's no way this team's not going to score a lot of runs. And, we're projected to score a lot of runs, but obviously that hasn't been the case, the last couple of years, and certainly wasn't the case last year. Last year I sort of think is a kind of an anomaly. I think you kind of throw that out, but I have really high expectations for the lineup. I think these guys are hungry. A lot of these guys are in contract years, and I expect that. I think this is going to be a turnaround year for the offense. And we've been talking a lot about our offense against velocity. I think that's something we used to do very well. We struggled with last year, and I think frankly, from a decision making standpoint at the plate, we've been sort of degrading in terms of our decision making over the last few years, and we need to lock it back in and get back to being a team that makes really good decisions at the plate and is willing to hand the baton to the next guy. And I think we've gotten kind of over aggressive at times. So, like I said, maybe I'm stubborn about this, but I expect big things out of the offense this year. I think a lot of guys are going to have really good years, and I think that's going to lift us all up.
I think that there is, and we're talking to Jed Hoyer, the president of the Chicago Cubs, there has been this perception among the fan base, Cubs are done, they stink, they're not going to be any good, blah, blah, blah. Yet you've gone to the playoffs 5 of the last 6 years, and you have guys who should be super motivated because they may be hitting free. If you don't get something done this season, they may be hitting free agency several months from now. So is anything less than a World Series title from your seat a disappointment for you?
Well, I think you have to enter every season with that mindset. I think that, I've always said, you have to, in this job, if every single season is a complete disappointment, if you don't win a World Series, then it becomes not that enjoyable because it's really hard. I think there have to be small successes along the way that kind of give you satisfaction and then you can shoot for. But obviously that's the goal. It has to be the goal. And that's kind of what I was saying before, that's where the beauty of raising those expectations comes in. But no, listen, I really believe in this group, and I think, we've had probably 5 consecutive years of, being expected to win the division by a significant amount, and being a team that was, that writers were thinking was going to be a World Series contender. And, this is the first time that, we've been a little bit of an underdog, and it's kind of a good feeling. I think that our guys will certainly respond to that because, like I said, it's been a while since we've been in that position, and I don't think guys love being overlooked.
Jed, what could Jake Arrieta bring to the pitching staff that John Lester could not?
Well, I think they're both really good veteran pitchers. I certainly never say a negative word about John. I think I was focus on what Jake can bring, and I think Jake's got a lot more good baseball to pitch left in him, and I think he's excited to be here. He's comfortable here. I think it's we'll see how it plays out. Of course, he hasn't thrown a competitive pitch with us since 2017, but I think he's comfortable here. And I think that means a lot when you think about making changes later in your career. I think that the pitching infrastructure is familiar. When they bring an idea to him or a thought to him, I think it's just a different level of communication. And so, obviously, I think every guy as he ages, the stuff backs up a little bit. You don't have quite the power. I think we watched John Lester do that very well over the last few years, and I think Jake will evolve the same way. So I expect him to be a leader in the clubhouse for us, and I expect him to pitch really well for us this year.
So being the president of baseball operations as opposed to being the general manager and executive VP, how has the whole operation changed for you day to day? Because the buck stops with you now.
Yeah, that's a real difference. I think that it doesn't change at all how I go about making decisions, or it doesn't change at all how we talk through things. This is the difference is that, I have the final call, or I guess I take the final recommendation to Tom, I think that as opposed to Theo doing that, and I've been in this position before, with the Padres. I think the biggest challenge and the thing that's been nice to get out to Arizona is that, it's just, I'm excited to be in this role when I can, be with our great staff in person. It's been hard. You're kind of in the office alone. You're on Zoom calls all day like everyone else in the country. And, getting out to spring training is the first time in 10 months where you can really be around the people you work with on a day-to-day basis. And there's something really awesome about that, being able to bounce an idea off someone in person as opposed to making a phone call or, FaceTiming someone to ask them a question. So I'm just excited. We have a great staff. Obviously, we've built this staff over the last 9 years, and, Theo, has moved on, but obviously, the great majority of the staff is still here, and so it's just a pleasure to work with them. So on a day-to-day basis, the real difference is just the final decision-making authority, but the process and the people are the same.
Jed, even though a lot of these players have been together, you want to be able to have a core moving forward. I think any Cub fans would want to see that. In your heart of hearts, do you see Bryant and Baez being part of the future for this Cubs team together on the same team?
I think with all the guys, I wouldn't single out those guys in particular. I think with all the guys that are up and going into free agency, I feel like it's we'll see. We'll have discussions with them. I look forward to having those discussions. We'll try to keep them quiet, and we do that a lot in the spring. But it's interesting. I think all the guys would love to remain here, but obviously there's a pool of free agency and what might be out there. And what I've said all along, and sometimes it makes headlines, sometimes it doesn't, but try to be realistic. That we can't keep everybody. We can't, and that's been a financial reality the whole time. And we're gonna have to make some hard decisions. But at the same time, continuity is a great thing, and we have a lot of really good players that have been great Cubs that we hope we keep long term. So exactly who that ends up being or what happens, I don't know yet. I don't think anyone does. But at the same time, I think it's important to be realistic about it, but also to hope that we have that continuity with these players that, like I said, have done so much for the organization.
Last thing for you, as you get ready for this season, how much bigger a challenge is navigating COVID-19? All of that went into last year was just 60 games, and I know it was, guys went nowhere. But now you're asking them to be as careful until they're vaccinated for February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, maybe into November. How much more difficult is that?
Yeah, it's a daunting task, certainly, and it's something we're going to discuss a lot because there was an element of a sprint last year, and so I think the concept of sort of hunkering down and knowing that, you had to really think about that. And listen, I think that doing that for all of spring training and then into the season and up until hopefully things can maybe loosen up a little bit with vaccinations. But yeah, it's daunting, but it's no less important than it was last year. Having losing a bunch of players for an outbreak or having to suspend things in spring training for a period of time, this is going to have a real negative impact on the season. So, I feel like we have to all continue to be vigilant, even though it's human nature. Everyone has some level of fatigue of what's going on. You wouldn't be human not to have some of that, but we have to fight through that and really just stay as vigilant as we did last year.
Jed, appreciate your time as always. We'll talk to you again soon, and just stay safe and healthy out there.
Hey, thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Appreciate you. Thanks a lot. There he is, Jed Hoyer, president of the Chicago Cubs on the baseball operations.